All right, now, y'all, this is maybe a little wrestling story that a lot of y'all, or maybe some, I don't know, that may not know anything of, or maybe just forgot. But Seth Rollins, that you all know as a champion now, this is the man right here that he jacked his whole image of the WWE. I guess gave the image to Seth Rollins that was this wrestler by the name of John Morrison. John Morrison was a guy that, he had that whole style coming down to the ring with the jacket, with the little furry little jacket that you see Seth Rollins wearing, with the shades, and had this whole, aura about himself that, captivated the fans. And he had his own style before, you seen wrestlers, started like, imitating or emulating, I guess, however you want to put it, and had this same style later as, of course, I just stated Seth Rollins. Now, he started off in Tough Enough. Tough Enough was a show back then, where we got a show like right as of now called LFG. That's like a spinoff from Tough Enough, but it's just a different name. Where you got up and coming, amateur wrestlers that's trying to fight for a spot to be in the company of the WWE. But before getting into professional wrestling, he attended the University of California and he studied, both film and geology. So he's like was aspiring to do acting as well. But he didn't know if he wanted to pursue that path. So he began a professional wrestling career, in training at the Supreme Pro Wrestling School in Sacramento, California. Now, after he failed the audition for the Tough Enough on Tough Enough Season 2, he got accepted as a cast member of Tough Enough 3 in 2002. Now, eventually, he became, the co-winner for winning the Tough Enough competition, and he was awarded a WWE development contract and was assigned to the WWE developmental territory in Ohio Valley Wrestling, OVW. But he continued to train and he competed in a barroom brawl match at Vengeance, WWE Vengeance in July of 2003. Now, Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, however you want to call him, because he went under that name too, if I'm not mistaken. Him and another guy, made an appearance on an episode of Heat, Sunday Night Heat. And Sunday Night Heat was a wrestling show that they had on Sundays, because it wasn't just Mondays and Raw and SmackDown. It was Sunday Night Heat as well. Back in those times, you had wrestling shows coming on 3 times a week on television: Mondays, Thursdays, because SmackDowns was on Thursdays, but they got moved to Friday later on in later years. But it was Monday, Thursdays, and Sundays was under the name of Sunday Night Heat. So that was back in 2004. And, he lost to Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak. Mark Jindrak was another wrestler that was pretty cool in a tag team match. But in 2004, later on, a year later, he debuted on Raw under the name Johnny Blaze. That was like a gimmick that he was like, the apprentice and assistant of the Raw general manager at the time, Eric Bischoff. And that next week, his name was changed to Johnny Spade. So he had like different names. And I'm finna get to the next name I was saying about Johnny Nitro. 3 weeks after that, his name was changed to Johnny Nitro. And the Nitro name, it stuck. Because, it was like, you had that name to where, okay, you just trying to see which one that you feel like would gravitate the fans' attention the most. And, Nitro, when you got WCW Nitro, Johnny Nitro, and bringing that to the WWE under that name, it makes sense. So, like I said, it was a reference to WCW, Monday Nitro. And on the flag, it was like a flagship show of the World Championship of Wrestling, for which, Bischoff, previously worked under for WCW before going to the WWE. Now, the drive point, the point home, he began like using that Nitro theme as his ring entrance music. And he acted, as I was just stating, as Bischoff's apprentice and assistant under that name. And in June, he was sent back to OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, to explain his departure. And he lost the match on the June 7th episode of Raw against Eugene. Eugene was that mentally disabled, playing under the mentally disabled role. He was a wrestler as well. Eugene was funny. He carried that stipulation that upon his loss, and he also he also lost his job upon that time. Now, Johnny Nitro, man, I feel like he really didn't get his he didn't really get a fair opportunity. I feel like he could have like did a little bit more with the company, the WWE, because he already, you know, had the selling points for the jacket, you know, the fly jacket and the glasses. But you know, WWE is a business, and you know, sometimes they don't even know what they're doing with certain wrestlers. I feel like they could have did more with Ryback. You know, Ryback, do your Googles on him, and it's just like they have their pickings of who they want to continue to represent the company and whatnot. And that's just the business of it. You know, it's a dog-eat-dog world. But Seth Rollins, let's go off into that situation. Seth Rollins, you know, started off with, you know, in the WWE, because I'm gonna skip past some points, but he started what we all know with him, like, you know, getting his really big, you know, shine is when like the Shield with him, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, that group in the WWE where they just all dressed in black and they were just terrorizing, interfering in matches and just beating down people. And later on, as the years bypassed, when the Shield broke up, he started, you know, having his own lane with him being going for a solo run. Dean Ambrose, he went and did his thing with another company. He got let go, and now he's over at AEW. So shout out to Dean Ambrose. But Seth Rollins, you know, he was one that was, you know, that they wanted to choose to keep to stay within the company of the WWE. So he had his solo run, and he was like starting, like he had to figure out, the WWE had to figure out what to kind of like build his image upon, because Seth Rollins really didn't have no image. He didn't have nothing to really gravitate to captivate to the fans, that something that would stick. You know, you needed something that would stick. So they said they pretty much, you know, as I was just stating, he got the style, and they said, okay, like this was John Morrison's, you know, Johnny Nitro style with the glasses and the fly coat. We want to put that on Seth Rollins to see how it would stick. And ever since then, it stuck. And the fans, like, you know, when he come down to the ring and have his whole chant with the crowd and the music with the fire blazing, it kind of fits along. It really does fit with the music and the fire that comes out, that shoots out when during his entrance. But this whole style, man, was strictly just, you know, stripped off from, you know, John Morrison. It was stripped off from him. So I don't know if anyone really know that, but I wanted to put it out to the forefront, because I feel like wrestlers like John Morrison's that image that get, I don't want to say stolen, but get, you know, when it gets passed down to another wrestler who they picked and chose to, and it's kind of like he did more with it. I don't want to like exclude the fact or leave out the fact that who really started that whole image. You know, because a lot of people, they want to just stick with who's more popular and make as if they're the first ones to have that look when they wasn't. John Morrison just didn't get a fair, equal opportunity, I feel, within the company. And I said, like, as I stated, that's the business. But he had that style first. So I just want to, like, you know, pinpoint that and just tell y'all how that whole situation came about within John Morrison and Seth Rollins, with that whole situation of that whole image you see Seth Rollins with, that he has. John Morrison had that look first. So yeah, man, Clash of Paris, of course, if you see that Seth Rollins, you know, had to cheat to win. Had his wife come out dressed in all black in the Clash of Paris. And we didn't know who it was. I didn't know who it was. I mean, I would have probably accepted the fact if it was anybody else. But when I found out it was her, because she's already on the hillside, I'm like, what are they trying to do with this? Where are they going with this route? Because it's not making sense. It's not, you know, really, you know, selling upon. I guess the whole situation with Paul Heyman just didn't work the way they wanted it to work, with the whole Bronson Breakker and Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman. That situation fizzled out. That didn't work. So now we want to pair Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch together, and she over here on Instagram page talking about they run the business when they don't. I mean, we all know who run the business, and that's, you know, the Samoans. That's the Roman Reigns, that whole family. It was passed down from when The Rock's great-great-grandmother, you know, had that wrestling company in Hawaii, and they brought it over here to the States. If you want to take it back to the bloodline of what really started the WWE. That's The Rock's great-great-great-grandmother, Ava, if I'm not mistaken. And his daughter's name, The Rock's daughter's name, Ava, and she's the manager of NXT. So they don't run nothing. So I like Becky Lynch here, but I'm starting not to like it because it seems like she's starting to believe her own hype. And I'm like, Becky, this is scripted, right? You really don't run nothing, right? I feel like she's kind of like getting in deep into character and really thinking that, she really is this. And I'm like, no, this is a character you're playing, Becky. Wake up. So, yeah, man, I just wanted to make that video up and just give y'all the whole truth behind, the story behind that whole situation with, Seth Rollins and John Morrison, man. Sensei Reality TV. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all again later on the next tip. Turn your post notifications on, and I'll let you later. One love. Peace, y'all.